At my sister's wedding, she put up a giant no entry banner with my face on it. Mom said, "A perfect family doesn't include you." I'd paid $14,200 for the venue and catering. I told them, "Your gift's at the gate." 20 minutes later, she opened the box and her smile vanished when she read the note inside. You know that feeling when you've given everything, poured your heart and your wallet into something, only to be publicly humiliated, branded the bad guy, and literally kicked out of an event you largely paid for? That's exactly what happened to me, Alex, at my own sister's wedding. And trust me, the comeuppance was swift, brutal, and oh so satisfying. So, who am I? I'm Alex. 31 years old, the oldest, the designated driver, the one with a toolkit in his trunk because something is always loose. I manage facilities for an office park, making sure everyone else's big days happen smoothly, no squeaks. I live above a laundromat, and honestly, I love that steady, predictable hum. In my family, I was always the reliable one. Over time, that morphed into the wallet, and eventually, it became the problem when I dared to say no. Then there's June, my sister. She's 28, and the absolute center of every room she walks into. She's quick with a toast, big with the gestures, and somehow, always lands in the photo where the light hits just right. My mom calls her our miracle. If I ever asked, "What's the plan?" Mom would sigh and say I was being negative. But if June announced, "I have a vision," Mom would beam and tell her she was a genius. The day of June's wedding arrived. I parked my car in a dusty gravel lot, adjusting a navy suit that fit perfectly and a tie that felt all wrong. This venue? It was one of those renovated barns, you know, the kind that once held hay but now charges $1,120 a plate for chicken. I walked the path, mason jars flickering, holding a simple white box with a card that just said, "For you both." Easy, quiet. I'd rehearsed being scenery. I was ready. The welcome arch was stunning, draped in chiffon and eucalyptus. Underneath, a charming sign read, "Choose a seat, not a side." I nodded, thinking, nice touch. But then I looked up. Stretched from post to post, a vinyl banner the size of a garage door stared back at me. It was my face. Not a good one. A candid shot from Thanksgiving, me mid-blink, eyes half closed. And in bold black font, right across my face, it screamed, "No entry." Then, in the bottom corner, small but chilling, "He knows why." My brain took a few agonizing seconds to process if this was some bizarre prank. A bridesmaid gasped, then giggled. Some uncle actually took a selfie with it. The wedding coordinator, headset on, froze for a beat, then suddenly found something fascinating on the ground. A little boy tugged his mom's sleeve and whispered, "Is that the bad guy?" His mother shushed him. I stood there, bathed in bright sunlight, a cartoon version of myself, feeling my ears burn. I called Mom. She picked up on the first ring, and before I could even speak, she let out this weary sigh, like I'd already started a fight. "Alex, please. Not today." "What is this?" Her voice was low, almost bored. "We have to look like a perfect family." She paused. "And that means without you." I stared at the banner. "Mom, you hung a banner with my face that says I can't come in." "Don't be dramatic," she snapped. "Your sister needs peace. You cause ripples." "I cause ripples?" I repeated, stunned. "The photographer is here," she said, her voice rising. "We'll talk next week." And then, she hung up. My phone buzzed immediately. A text from June, "Don't make this weird. Consider this my boundary." A text from Dad, "Son, please just give today to your sister." Then, a groomsman, looking like he'd drawn the short straw, approached. He winced. "Hey, man. I'm supposed to escort you out. Could you wait by the lot? We'll figure it out." My hands felt too heavy. I put the gift box down on a nearby bench. I could taste penny metal in my mouth, that bitter, metallic tang of regret mixed with injustice. I thought about all the line items I'd covered over the last 2 months, just because it was easier if I handled it. The venue deposit, the caterer retainer, the first half for the band. I had the receipts in my bag. Of course I did. I told myself, not yet. Don't think about that yet. A woman I didn't know whispered, wow, she really did it to her friend. Her friend whispered back, iconic. I picked up the box again. My fingers had stopped shaking. I called Mom one more time. Alex, she said, exasperated. Okay, I said. Okay. And I hung up. The security guy was watching me, unsure if he should be gentle or firm. I gave him a small, tight smile. The gifts, I said, pointing to the welcome table. I set my box beside the programs. He nodded, clearly wanting no part of whatever this was. I turned, walked back to my car, and sat behind the wheel. Window cracked, the smell of cut grass sliding in. I didn't drive away. I didn't cause a scene. I just inhaled until my ribs ached and exhaled until that penny taste finally faded. My phone buzzed again, texts stacking, judgments arriving. I put it face down on the passenger seat and watched a bee fight a peony in the flower bed. The first trigger had landed. I didn't move toward money. Not yet. I just sat very still and realized, in that quiet moment, that I had finally learned the difference between being a problem and having a boundary. See, that banner didn't just appear out of nowhere. It grew, like mold, quietly, over years, in warm, dark corners where no one wanted to look. If you rewind our family history far enough, you can see the outline. When June and I were kids, she broke a window with a softball. Mom took photos of our little athlete, then passed around cupcakes. Later, when I was 16 and dented the minivan, Dad made me call the insurance and pay the deductible myself from my summer job. Builds character, he'd said. Mom added, your sister's sensitive. Don't scold her. June was 13. By high school, I had 2 part-time jobs and a bank app one check like the weather. June had a vision board and a string of social media posts captioned, big things coming. When I asked for a graphing calculator, Mom said, use your brain. When June asked for a ring light, Mom said, invest in yourself, sweetie. I learned to be useful. I learned that being useful often meant being quiet. At 22, I had a savings account labeled down payment. And, because I'm honest, another one labeled family. Mom called that bridge money, because we're all a team. June called it, can you do the thing? The thing was always, pay a deposit, spot a fee, handle a bill. I kept a spreadsheet. It made me feel like these were choices, not just ingrained patterns. Then June fell in love with Ryan. He's the kind of guy who says, boss lady, without a hint of irony. He's not the villain here, just the kind of man who grabs the check when cameras are around and forgets his wallet when they're not. They got engaged under twinkle lights. Mom cried like it was a movie. Dad stood with his hands in his pockets, like he was auditioning for supportive father number 2. A week later, Mom sent me a calendar invite, venue tour. I asked what the budget was. She just said, don't be small, Alex. At the barn, the manager walked us through words like rustic, charm, signature cocktail. June spun in the aisle, like she owned the air. The quote made my stomach clench. Mom said, it's a once-in-a-lifetime day. A few days later, June emailed me a spreadsheet. It was titled Our Big Day, with tabs for venue, catering, band, florals, photo booth, extras. And then, a tab called Sponsors. At the top, primary, Alex, Big Brother, followed by a winky face emoji. I called her. Take that off. She laughed. You're good with money, Alex. It's just logistics. You'll handle deposits. We'll Venmo you. Promise. No, I said. She giggled. Don't be stingy. You make more than me. That's the part that never gets said out loud, but is always there. You make more than me, therefore, your money is our money. It slips under doors like a draft. I said no again. Mom called. Sweetie, it's just easier if you handle some of it. We'll all pitch in. We won't, I said. We never do. Don't be cruel, she said softly. Mom's weapon has always been that word, cruel. She hangs it around your neck and waits for you to pull it off. I covered the venue deposit. I told myself I wasn't caving, I was choosing a gift. Then I covered the caterer retainer because the manager called me and said the date would be released otherwise. Mom said, "You're our hero." June posted a story of a charcuterie board and tagged me. Then took it down 5 minutes later. I guess heroes aren't aesthetic. Then the little additions started. A late-night taco bar. No one forgets tacos. A neon sign. It's my brand. A live painter. It's an investment. Each came with a screenshot and a time-sensitive caption. They can hold it if we pay by today. I started saying no. Mom texted, "You always were rigid." Dad texted thumbs-up emojis from work, like that counted. Ryan said, "We'll hit you when I get my bonus." June said, "Just the band half, please. You know they'll book out." I looked at my family tab in my spreadsheet and sent the wire. By the time we were 3 weeks out, I had put $14,200 toward the day. I kept a separate folder in my email with subject lines like contract bar number 1475, caterer retainer receipt, band deposit Jeremy and Company. Each one had my name as the contracting party, because it's simpler. Simpler always meant, we're going to use your credit score instead of dealing with our own. The first time someone suggested I shouldn't attend? It was a joke. We were at June's apartment for a planning night. She had a whiteboard with vibe written across the top, and underneath, no drama, no downers, no Alex. Followed by a little frown, then laughter. I smiled, because sometimes, the only other choice is to flip the table. Halfway through, June said, too casually, "So, the planner thinks it might be best if you sit this one out." "Sit what out?" I asked. "The day," she said, "I's still on her list. You and Ryan don't gel, and you're just intense. It hurts the vibe." Mom didn't even look up. "Optics matter, sweetie," she mumbled. "We have to look like a perfect family." Without me, I finished. "Don't be a martyr," June snapped. "You can do the rehearsal dinner or the brunch." I stared at the whiteboard. In the corner, under payments, my name was written next to 3 lines. Mom saw me looking and put her hand over it, as if the problem was visibility. I drove home and sat in my car in the parking lot until the radio host said the next hour's sponsor was a mattress company. The absurdity helped. I made 2 lists on my phone: still gift the things I had already committed to and could sleep with, and withdraw everything else. At the bottom, I wrote a sentence that didn't feel like me yet: no entry means no access. The next day, I called the venue manager. Asked boring questions about contracting rights and what happens if the sponsor withdraws. He used words like transfer of responsibility, reduction of services, COD. I called the caterer, asked what parts were covered and what could be dropped. Called the band, learned that the second set wasn't locked until the final payment. My friend Tessa, a lawyer, texted, "You're the contracting party. If they bar you, you can withdraw, but do it clean. For you, not to them." I texted back, "I get it." I didn't yet. 1 week out, I got an email from the venue. Per bride's request, we'll have a sign that says sponsored by Big Brother. Is that okay? It was like they were daring me to see the whole picture. I wrote back, "No. Remove any signage with my name. Ever." 2 nights before the wedding, June sent me a selfie. Her in a robe, hair up, glowing. "Big day soon," she wrote. "Then let's not fight. Stay in your lane and it'll be perfect." My lane, I thought, has always been the one with a toll booth. The morning of the wedding, I tied my tie twice. I put the receipts in my bag, not because I wanted a battle, but because I knew exactly who I was dealing with. I taped a sentence inside my wallet, on a scrap of paper. "This isn't about revenge. This is about closure." It looked ridiculous next to my insurance card. It looked like a new spine. I didn't plan the banner. I plan what happens when someone hangs a sign with your face and tells the world you're the punchline. So, I sat in my car, window cracked, the gift box on the passenger seat, the smell of cut grass coming in. I opened my email app. I took the drafted message out of drafts. Subject: Withdrawal of sponsorship. Contract number 1475. To Barn Manager. Per today's events, I am withdrawing all further payments as contracting party for venue, catering add-ons, and band's second set. I have been denied entry to the event I am sponsoring. Please transfer all remaining balances to the bride/groom and/or reduce services accordingly. Any attempt to charge my card will be disputed. Send. I called the manager. He answered on the second ring, already in a whisper. Hi, Alex. I sent you an email, I said. We got it, he said. We'll need a card from someone else by 3. You will? I said. Next. The caterer. Hey, Alex, she said, like we were friends now. We're plating apps. I'm withdrawing from add-ons and dessert, I said. Serve what's covered. The rest is COD. Understood, she said. Caterers, I swear, are the calmest people on earth. We'll take a card from the bride. Next. The band. Big man Jeremy said, ready to rock. Cancel the second set unless the groom pays you, I said. Do not charge my card again. He whistled. Yikes. What happened? They hung a banner with my face that says no entry, I said. He made a noise like he'd bumped into a glass door. Dude. Yeah, I said. Dude. I texted June, gifts at the gate. It was petty. And also, polite. The box really did have a gift inside, a small ceramic piece she'd pointed at in a boutique once. On top of it, in an envelope, was a printed note. It said exactly what I'd sent to the vendors, final payment reversed. Contract voided. Sponsorship withdrawn. I set the box on the welcome table. The security guy watched me like he wasn't paid enough for symbolism. It's just a present, I said. 20 minutes later, June came running. Heels clicking, dress scooped in one hand, phone in the other, bridesmaids flapping behind her. She tore the ribbon like she was mad at it, opened the box. Saw the little statue, tossed the tissue aside, and then, she read the note. Her face went from anger to confusion, then to a blankness I'd only seen once before, when Dad told her no and meant it. What is this? She demanded. My boundary, I said. You can't unpay, she shrieked. I can withdraw from what I haven't paid yet, I said. And I did. You're ruining my day, she cried. You barred me from it, I said, my voice steady. Mom appeared, like a sudden change in weather. Alex, she said, her voice low and dangerous. Fix this. No, I said. Dad hovered behind her, eyes on the gravel lot. You always make everything about you. June stabbed a finger at the banner, like it wasn't literally about me. You could have just left. I did, I said. The money came with me. The venue manager edged in with a clipboard. We'll need a card for the balance, he said, soft as a nurse. June lifted her chin. Put it on mine. Her card declined. She tried again. Declined. Ryan tried his. It worked for a portion. Mom handed hers over without looking at me. The manager nodded, tapping a device. Photo booth will be closed after dinner, he said to no one in particular. No late-night tacos. The planner nodded, rearranging a schedule on her clipboard like a triage nurse. June stared at me like I had just announced winter. You're cruel, she hissed. No, I said, still steady. I'm clear. Ryan finally spoke. Bro, not cool. I'm not your bro, I said. And that wasn't anger. It was a fact. Mom's mouth trembled the way it does when she wants to say something that will make me 12 again. She didn't find the words in time. Get out, she snapped. You made a sign, I said gently. I'm following directions. I walked to my car. I didn't slam the door. I sat for a minute and put my forehead on the steering wheel. Then I lifted it, and I drove away. The banner got smaller in the rear view. Then the road curved, and it was gone. My hands were steady on the wheel. My chest felt hollow and clean, like a room after you finally pack the boxes. I boiled pasta, because boiling pasta is something predictable that ends with food. I ate standing up. I waited for regret to kick in, like a late train. It didn't. The quiet felt like oxygen. At 9:12 p.m., I turned my phone back on. It tried to climb out of my hand. 29 missed calls from Mom. 17 from June. 10 from Ryan. 8 from Dad. A pile from numbers I didn't have saved. You're a monster. You embarrassed your mother. We'll never forget this. Wow. Then, one from Aunt Leia. Sometimes the only way to stop being used is to stop being useful. Proud of you. Don't quote me. June's texts came like a storm. It was a joke. Consider the sign performance art. You could have just stayed home. You owe me the taco bar. I hate you. I love you, but I hate you. Answer your phone. I didn't. Dad called. I answered. He cleared his throat. Well, he said. You did a thing. I did, I replied. Your mother is. He stopped. Your sister is crying. She hung a banner, I said. I know, he said. I told them not to. I'm not good at winning around here. Me neither, I said. Come by tomorrow, he said. Not to apologize. For what, then? To sit in the garage and stare at the mower, he said. We can be bad at this together. Okay, I said. Sunday morning, Mom's tone shifted in a text, like a radio changing stations. We can talk. You made your point. You went too far. You're still my son. Family first. I wrote back, I won't discuss money by text. She replied, this isn't about money. Everything, I thought, had been about money. Ryan posted a moody photo of rain on string lights with the caption, sometimes people show you who they are. Comments flowed from strangers who think nuance is a myth. I didn't answer them. I don't argue with an audience. At noon, I walked the aisle of Dad's garage like it was a museum. He handed me a folding chair. We sat, said nothing, then too much, then nothing again. He said, when you were 10, you saved up for a Swiss Army knife. You counted coins out loud. I told you to put them away. You said you liked seeing progress. I should have listened better to the kid who liked progress. I like it because it's real, I said. He nodded at the concrete. Your sister grew up in a story someone else told about her. You grew up in a spreadsheet you had to make. We sat with that. It wasn't forgiveness. It was a sentence that fit the room. Mom showed up later with leftover cake in a plastic container. Are we done? She asked, instead of hello. With what? I said. With all of this, she said, waving at the air like it was misbehaving. It's just money. It comes and goes. It comes from me and goes to you, I said. She blinked. You're being unkind. I'm being accurate, I said. She set the container down, then tugged at her sleeve like she could straighten the day. We have to look like a perfect family, she said again, out of habit. I'd settle for an honest one, I said. She looked at the banner, rolled up in the corner of the garage. Dad had taken it down and leaned it there like a yard sale sign. Mom stared at my printed face for a long time. We shouldn't have done that, she said, so softly I almost missed it. Yeah, I said. June texted me Sunday night. I shouldn't have done the sign then. But you nuked my wedding then. We're done. Then, after midnight, do you still have the gift? I looked at the ceramic thing on my counter. It was ugly in a way that would make her call it camp. I typed, I'll drop it at Dad's. She sent back just a period. Work was painfully normal on Monday. A tenant complained about a humming light. A contractor tried to add a rush fee to an invoice. I said no. He said he'd never had a client talk to him like that. I said I'd never had a contractor charge me like that. We both laughed, because we both knew it wasn't true. I realized I was as good at protecting my company as I had been bad at protecting myself. That changed Saturday. And I kept it changed. At lunch, I opened a new note on my phone and titled it, Boundaries I Keep. No paying for events I can't attend. No, just put it on your card. No conversations about money by phone. Email only. No apologizing for no. No new family tab. I printed it and taped it inside my cabinet, next to the spices. Every morning, when I reach for salt, I read it out loud, like I'm learning a language. By midweek, the shouting in group texts turned into whispers. Cousins texted me versions of I get it with disclaimers. Aunt Leia sent me a photo of her cat in a box with the caption, Boundaries. I laughed for the first time in days and didn't feel guilty about it. Saturday, I took the statue to Dad's. He opened the box, looked at it, and said, It's hideous. We laughed. He put it on a shelf above the mower. Let it watch over our bad decisions, he said. For once, the joke didn't clang. Mom came into the garage like a woman entering a church she didn't believe in, but needed anyway. Dinner on Thursday, she asked. Just dinner? No speeches? No banner? I said. No banner, she repeated, and smiled in a way that made her look closer. To human than to robot. Thursday dinner was awkward. Good awkward. The kind where people try new sentences and keep them in their mouths. Mom asked, How's work? I answered. She nodded, and didn't pivot to optics or money. June didn't come. I didn't ask where she was. I ate chicken and said, Thank you, and left before anyone got brave enough to drag the story back to the table. A week later, June sent a picture of a plant she'd bought. It's dying. Help. I wrote, Water it. She sent an eye roll and a heart. It was a truce the size of a postage stamp. I stuck it in my pocket anyway. I didn't become a new person after a banner and a box. I became a person who could hear his own no without flinching. That sounds small. It turned out to be the whole door. It's been a month. The official wedding album went up. No banner. The internet trimmed the story the way the planner trimmed the schedule. People will believe the version that helps them sleep. I'm learning to stop arguing with pillows. I kept the list inside my cabinet and added one more line. I don't explain math to people who prefer magic. I read it while the kettle boils. I say it out loud sometimes, quietly, like a prayer the coffee understands. Mom texts me sunsets now. Sometimes I go to dinner. Sometimes I don't. When she tiptoes toward perfect, I change the subject or I stand up and put on my coat. Where are you going? She asks. Home, I say. She doesn't like it. She lets me. Dad keeps a folding chair in the garage for me. We sit sometimes and say nothing important. It's our language. It works. June and I are not fixed. We send each other pictures of dumb things. A dog in a tiny raincoat. A lopsided cake. Every now and then she writes, I shouldn't have done the sign then. I write back, I shouldn't have funded so much. We don't add, but we don't fix the past. We just stop dragging it into the kitchen. If you want a moral, here's mine. If someone hangs your face at the door, don't pay for the door. If they call your boundary cruelty, that's just the echo of all the times your lack of boundary benefited them. Say no anyway. This isn't about revenge. This is about closure. Enclosure looked like emails I sent from a gravel lot, and a sentence I printed and taped inside my wallet. It looks like me boiling pasta without doing math in my head for someone else's bill. It looks like buying 2 pastries from the shop downstairs and not saving one to prove I'm generous. I'm not the sponsor anymore. I'm the person who pays his own rent, shows up when invited, and leaves when he isn't. I'm the person who doesn't beg to be let in under a banner with his face on it.